we'll do the live thing first. Like, hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. If you ever want to drop us a line or let us know a topic you want to hear, check us out on Instagram or on Twitter at the Bigmark Podcast or the Bigmark Pod. You can support the podcast at our Patreon, patreon.com/the Bigmark Podcast. Shout out to all of our new Patreon members there, patrons as they like to call them. And, we love the support and thank you so much. And it's going to keep us going. And like I said, there's different levels there. You can kind of see which one suits you. There's kind of exclusive stuff there. Bigmark's book club and kind of stuff like that. Anyway, like I said, usually with these podcasts, I like to have guests on, or I like to do these solo ones. If you've never listened before, and when I get you with these solo ones, sometimes I like to do a certain topic, and it's usually a topic that have some cursory knowledge about or something like that. But this today's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be kind of a story where, it's basically something. Well, it is something that happened to me personally, and it's kind of it was a cool event, and it's kind of something in my life that I like to talk about, but I don't really get a chance to go into like the nitty gritty of it per se. And it's always funny. I mean, when I started this podcast, like, I know there's obviously a little bit of a kind of self-focused, self-centeredness necessarily to this, especially these solo ones. But I kind of wanted to mix it up, and it's gonna be fun. We got some great guests lined up coming on soon, and like I said, it's kind of like it's interesting to do these solo ones. But I did one a while ago, kind of a little bit more about myself, introducing myself, but I kind of more wanted to stray away from that and just get into things that I enjoyed, and then hopefully that would spark some kind of conversation or ideas out there. But I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, I believe during the Olympics podcast, that I was a part of the International Children's Games, and it's something I mention all the time. It's like on my resume and stuff. It was a great event, and it was super important in my life, and I felt really honored to be a part of it. So I thought I'd kind of tell you the story about that. And it was 2006, so I was in grade 9. I think I started grade 9 technically in 2005. So it was the summer of grade 6. You could only be in grade 9 or younger. You couldn't be, grade 9 started 2005. Yeah. So, you could only be in grade 9 or younger. So basically everyone on our team, was in grade 9. We had one kid in grade 8. Basically, it's International Children's Games. It's kind of like the Kids Olympics. I believe there's an official Children's Olympics. I'm not 100% sure, but the International Children's Games are sanctioned by the International Olympic Committee. Like, we had a member of the International Olympic Committee come and do a speech for us and all this kind of stuff, right? So it is sanctioned by the Olympics in that way. But again, it's only grade 9 and younger, and then it's kind of like so I played on a basketball team, if I haven't mentioned that yet. We were the only basketball team from Canada, but we weren't necessarily like Team Canada. It was kind of based on cities, so there was kind of a municipal, international kind of politic aspect to things too. So we had a couple members from our city of Hamilton, counselors and people were involved in City Hall come with us on the journey, and they met up with other delegates from other cities. So it was an interesting thing, and I mean, I look at it like an amazing experience, but again, it wasn't like I was on Team Canada. Hamilton was great, especially at that time, and my age group was, had some really good players, and but again, it was specifically in the Hamilton area. I believe the stipulation was you have to pay taxes in the city that you're going to play for, because we technically had a couple kids like that lived in Oakville, kind of, or in Burlington, but their parents worked in Hamilton, so they were allowed to come and play for us, which is interesting. So, a little short history kind of about the International Children's Games. The first games was held on June 5th, 1968 in Celje, Slovenia. It was only track and field, and it was basically just Southern Europe. So it was kind of like Slovenia and like Montenegro and I think Italy and kind of some of those other countries in the direct vicinity, I should say. It was recognized officially by the IOC in 1990. So they kept holding the games, and the IOC kind of were like, all right, these, we're going to kind of recognize what these people are doing with the kids, and it's really interesting. Hamilton hosted actually the first event, Summer Games, in 1994. So I think they've only had, I think the first summer games the first winter games, I should say, were in the mid 2000s. So they didn't always have winter games, but the first summer games held outside of Europe was actually here in Hamilton. So really interesting in 1994. I obviously was too little to remember any of that, but again, we hosted it at one point, which is pretty cool. And like I mentioned, it was kind of city representatives too that get together, and it's just like kind of international politics, and it's interesting to probably talk about some of the policies that each country, or sorry, each city does in their country, and what have you. The 2006 International Children's Games that I was a part of was hosted in Bangkok, Thailand. So, which was great because obviously it could have been hosted like in Hamilton or in Toronto. So, and actually I believe the next year was somewhere very close. And, again, I was really honored, and it was amazing, like, to be a part of that, because obviously when you're that far away in a completely other country, it just adds to that whole vibe. And, as much as it's, tough for me to kind of toot my own horn, it really kind of felt like we were in the Olympics. Like, it was really, really interesting. I mean, kids and teams from all over the world, you're in this foreign country, all this stuff. It was like, it was wild. And I'll come back to this point a few times during the podcast, but I was only in grade 9. So I was like 14. I think at that point I had already turned 15, but I was like really young. I didn't really know what was going on. I was there to play basketball too, which I had been doing for majority of my life up until that point. So I was really focused. I kind of knew what my brain kind of went into the mode. All right, just focus on the tournament, play basketball, and then we'll keep going, because it's just like information culture overload, right? Really cool though, super fun, amazing experience. A little bit about so yeah, like, I mean, again, going to Bangkok, it was just the sights, the sounds, the smells, everything was just wild. It was the 40th International Children's Games, which is pretty cool. They actually, the year after Bangkok, so in 2007, Bangkok was hosting the University Games, which is like an international university sporting event. And we were kind of testing out the facilities for that, which is really interesting. So we were kind of like putting it through their paces. So the University Games used those same facilities after us the next year, which is really cool. It was held August 23rd to 29th, 2006. There were 10 sports, including basketball, of course. Actually, one of the other sports was, I neglected to write it down, but it's basically like volleyball, and you kind of play with your feet, and then you have this like little wicker ball. Really interesting. The first time I'd ever seen it was actually on in person at the games, and again, just wild. Like, the flexibility and athleticism of these athletes is wild. soccer, volleyball, track and field events, swimming. Again, it was 10 sports, so not every single sport, but 2,280 participants, 84 cities, 38 countries, over 4 continents, which is really interesting. Again, super honored to be a part of it. It really felt like this big international competition, and they really made it feel super cool. Canada, so like I said, there was 84 cities from 38 countries. So a lot of the countries kind of sent a few different teams too. So Canada sent 3 teams. Our volleyball team was from Brantford. I believe there was a soccer team from Halifax. There was a team from Halifax. I believe it was soccer. And then our basketball team was from Hamilton. We sent a boys and girls team. And girls basketball in Hamilton, Ontario has always been really, really good. Like, I went to St. Mary's High School. Shout out St. Mary's. And our girls basketball program was just tremendous. Rich Wazlowski was is the head coach there, I believe, still, and just dominant and really, really good. Like, at least when I was still in high school, they had won like 9 out of the 11 last OFSA championships. Just tremendous. So, again, Hamilton basketball, or girls basketball in Hamilton, was really known. So, I don't know if we had to bid to get into this, or because we hosted in the past, or I don't know exactly how Hamilton even got in to be the city representing and playing basketball, for that matter. But we were, and it was great. Basketball is a pretty close-knit community in Hamilton, so when we knew that the International Children's Games were coming up, it was kind of on my radar anyway. I had played my first season of high school basketball up until this point. I was also playing with Blessed Sacrament. Shout out Blessed Sacrament, everybody on the team. I was playing with Jeff Joseph and their team, who they were actually all guys born in 1990, so all the guys a year older than me. I was playing with them, and one of the guys I was playing with, Vic Razzo, shout out Vic Razzo, he just got married the other day. He's the head coach of the Niagara River Lions right now, and tremendous basketball player. I was playing with him and his dad, Joe Razzo, who was actually the McMaster University's head coach of their men's basketball team for 18-20 years, is Vic's dad. So he was at a lot of the games, and he knew me. My pops and him go way back. They used to play basketball together. They're about the same age. Coach Razzo was also a teacher at St. Mary's too, but he had a sports camp that he used to host as well. But again, I had known Coach Razzo and Vic for a while, and just through basketball. So when it came time for the games to come up, Coach Joe asked me to play for the team. I was more than happy to try out. We went through the tryouts and everything. Again, like I said, there was a couple kids kind of coming from outside of Hamilton, but basically it was kind of like a Hamilton all-star team, which is really interesting. I basically knew everyone who was trying out, had played with them in the past or played against them at some point. Really, really interesting situations when you have coaches that when they choose players for their team, they always kind of have different roles in their mind that they have to play out. And a really good friend of mine, didn't actually make the team because Coach Razzo kind of chose a player who was really tough and kind of would just run through a wall for you, and he kind of fit that role that was needed in the overall look at our team, I guess, right? So interesting how that goes. It's sad to say, because he was my good bud, but that's the way these tryouts work. Sometimes you're just not fit for the role, right? It's just like anything. So again, everyone coming together, really interesting. I believe Coach Razzo had coached a few of these other international children's games in the past, so he had some credibility and some experience with it, of course, and of course all of his years coaching at McMaster. But they brought the teams together once they were chosen. When the guys and girls teams did a lot of stuff together, getting our jersey set up. But again, this was like 2006. Like, there wasn't a lot of fanfare. I feel like today there would have been a lot more. It's a lot easier to take cool pictures and do a lot of stuff. But again, it wasn't really like Canada basketball was involved or like the entire federal government. It was more just in Hamilton. And I think there was a little bit of press, but very little, which was really interesting before and after. Actually, after we had come back, and we did really well in the tournament, and we come back, and no one really seemed to care. And my mom actually sent in like a message to the Hamilton Spectator, which is our newspaper here, saying, like, these two teams just went across the world and like, played in the basketball tournament, did really well, came back, and no one seemed to really care. It was really interesting. So, but it is what it is. And, because there's this municipal city politician, city councilor aspect, we did a lot of stuff in City Hall, and that was really fun, kind of going into like the main boardroom there, and kind of going over what the plan was and how we were going to get there, and meeting the counselors that were going to come. And, it was really, really just kind of a whirlwind experience. Basically, they paid for the whole trip, which was super awesome. I think each player only had to put up a couple $100s at best. We didn't have like the nicest jerseys in the world, but they gave us like cool warm-ups with like the Bangkok International Children's Games logo on the back and all that stuff. So it was cool. And again, you're in grade 9, and it's wild. Like, your mind kind of goes to the place where it's like, what's most comfortable. And at the time, I'm just thinking, this is just another basketball tournament. I've done many basketball tournaments. How bad could this be, right? So anyway, we're getting all of our stuff ready. And coincidentally, my stepmom's good friend that she grew up with was actually working for a newspaper in Bangkok. So my parents, my stepmom and my dad were planning on traveling and going to Thailand separately too. So I was actually going, and they were going to be there, which, I think kind of probably eased things a little bit more, where some of the other guys didn't necessarily have that. But anyway, so all the accommodations get made, we get ready, we all meet, we get on the bus, we drive down to Buffalo, we fly from Buffalo to JFK in New York, and then we fly straight from New York to Bangkok. We fly, and we went over top. We went over the Arctic, and it was like, we didn't really know exactly what the flight plan was right off the bat, but we're looking at the GPS thing on the back of the seat, right? And me and my buddy Andrew Spitma, shout out to Andrew Spitma, are sitting next to each other, and we noticed the plane is going like straight north, and we're thinking, oh, it's gonna go north and like do like a little bank, like which way we're gonna go, because we're going from the east coast of North America. So anyway, we're going north, we're going straight, and it's like, holy shit, we're gonna go over top, right? And so we're watching the flight is 18 hours, so they're telling us, you guys got to get up and move around. And at the time I was 6'6", almost 6'7". We had another guy same height. We had a bunch of tall kids, even though we were in grade 9. It was a basketball team, right? So I think one of the girls was like 6'2". Again, tall people. So we got to get up, we got to move around. So you're moving around. Then at one point, about halfway through, maybe not even halfway technically, we look at the GPS and we're like, yo, Andrew, like lift up the window, because it's in the middle of the night at this point. So everyone has their shades closed, but we open it, and it was like a blinding light that just almost shot us right out of our seats. It was so bright, and it was just the reflection of the sun off the pure white snow, because basically we were like right over the North Pole. And as you're going up, there's kind of rocks and snow and stuff and like kind of mountain stuff. But once you're like right over the top, it's just pure white, pure snow. And it was really interesting to see that. It was also terrifying to think, like, if we went down there for any reason, it's like we're finished, like we're going to freeze to death, or it's like, I don't know, would you rather go down in the wide open ocean or somewhere like that, right? So anyway, and then as you come over, it's the same idea. Everything kind of goes, and you kind of see, things kind of get a little bit more tropical. It's interesting because I guess we went over Mongolia and stuff, and it was very like tundra, really kind of almost desert, right? So anyway, we fly in, we land in Bangkok, and it was we get all of our stuff, and it's regular airport experience kind of thing. And we step out of the airport, and it was like a punch in the face, just the heat, the smells, the pollution, like everything. And so Bangkok's about the city the size of Toronto with like 8 million people in it. So it's a mega city. It's heavy duty. Things are happening. And again, the culture overload is just beginning, right? So hot, 35 degrees Celsius with 100% humidity. It's August, late August. So it's about to be their monsoon season. And just everywhere you went, just instant sweat. So the whole trip, we're supposed to be there for 10 days total. It's a 5-day tournament. The first 2 days are there for us to kind of get settled. And then there's 3 days at the end of the tournament, kind of when the tournament's over, I should say, and when the games are over, for a little bit of sightseeing. The first night we get there, actually the first moments we get there, we land, and coach is like, all right, guys, like time to go practice. And we're like, holy shit, we just like flew for 18 hours, but he's like, we got to move. We got to get the legs moving. So we go and do like a quick little run through practice, quick little scrimmage kind of thing. And in the gym, we show up, they hadn't turned the AC on yet. So the gym is like basically just as hot as it is outside. And we're in full practice, and everyone is just sweating, just dripping, pouring with sweat. And we all get home, go get changed. And again, everyone's kind of wound up wide awake because of the time change. Everyone kind of slept on the plane. So we all went to the night market one of the first nights. Actually, the first night we went to the night market. And the night market in Bangkok is famous, huge, this giant sprawling urban market where you can basically get anything, food, toys, clothes, and jewelry, any type of wares you can basically imagine. Portobello Road, that kind of just open air market kind of thing. And you can barter with it. It's all about bartering, and it was really fun actually. I bought a couple things, and you kind of can haggle with people a little bit, and it's really fun. But like I said, my pops and my stepmom Andrea were coming down, and I said, I didn't really know when they were getting there. They knew when the game started. They had their kind of whole their own personal itinerary. But we're walking through the night market checking thing, and all of a sudden I see over the crowd, because my dad's pretty tall, I see my dad. And I'm like, oh my God, what are the chances that we met here? We said, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. We're here. We're in the hotel, blah, blah, whatever. Here you go. My dad actually ended up sitting on the bench a little bit during for all the games, because again, like I said, him and Joe were buddies, and we didn't really have the budget to have any assistant coaches anyway. So it was nice for my dad to help out Joe a little bit. And he knew all these guys. He had coached or coached against every single one of them. Basically everyone on my I'd say, I think there was 15 on the squad. There might have only been 14 on the squad completely. I played on a team for years with about 10 of them, I'd say. And then the other 3 or 4 were guys that I played against or went to other high schools in Hamilton that I knew intimately. So my pops knew a lot of them too. And so again, it was great for him to sit on the bench, and it was an amazing experience to have my dad around for sure. So, they started, the game started, the 2 days or a day after the game started, and we had full opening ceremonies. Everyone walks around the track, and there's fireworks. The princess of Thailand showed up and was like, yo, what's up? It was just like amazing. Again, your head is just spinning, but you're focused on basketball. You're focused. You're ready to play some sports. So we played quite a few teams. There was like 2 pools in the basketball tournament. Bangkok was on one side with a bunch of other teams that we never really played. We never crossed over and played. Mexico City, and then in our pool, we played Kaunas, Lithuania. We actually ended up playing them twice. We played Manama, Bahrain. We played Petras, Greece. We played Chesterfield, Virginia from the U.S., and I believe we played Jerusalem from Israel. We played a team from Israel, and I believe it was Jerusalem, which was wild. Again, a lot of us were played for Catholic schools, so it was just like kind of a bizarre thing. We ended up playing Lithuania twice because we actually won. I believe we won all of our games. We went completely undefeated in the pool, and we had to play Lithuania again to get out of the pool to then play in the final. I don't believe we had to play in like a semi. It was kind of like a strange, like you just had to win your pool, and then the 2 winners played in the final, I believe. It was really interesting because, again, we're in Bangkok. It's a bunch of kids from all over the world. Again, Bangkok had teams, but and from neighboring countries too. But it's not like we're internationally famous or like we're older where it's going to be amazing competition. So the thought never really crossed my mind kind of until we got there. It's like, who's going to come and watch these games, right? Are these just going to be empty stands? We're going to go all over the world just to go play in front of empty stands. But I guess what the organizers of the games did is they filled the stands with kids, like school children from around Bangkok. Full, like to the brim, every stand. It was an interesting arena where the basketball was being played because we played like in a sunken gym, so like the floor was about 10 feet lower than where the stands started, so you kind of felt like it was like this intimate thing. It was almost like kind of like a hockey rink a little bit, where you're like lower and then the stands start. But I'm talking full stands, full of kids beating drums. Some kids had like gloves on with different colors on each side, and they would like flat or like white gloves, and they would like do like hand signals. Some kids with like two-sided paper with a color on each side, and they would like flip the papers. Again, it's full cheers, and it basically just seemed like the teachers or whoever was just like, all right, you're rooting for Canada, you're rooting for Lithuania, like whatever side. And they were just like cheering for, and when you'd score, it'd be this huge thing. And, you'd go after the game, you'd thank the kids and stuff and wave. And you'd also exchange gifts with the other teams too, which was really fun. Actually, because I speak a little Lithuanian, when we went and exchanged gifts with the Lithuanian team, I spoke Lithuanian to them, and the guys were like so confused. Either they didn't expect me to know how to speak Lithuanian, or my Lithuanian was so bad that they just didn't know what I was saying. I kept it really simple. I just said like, thanks, hello. Anyway, so, and then after the games were done, like when we were playing in the round robin games, we'd get changed and come out of the change room, and all the kids that were in the stands were waiting for you to come out of the change room. And I was signing autographs. I probably signed hundreds of autographs of all these little kids in Bangkok. And these kids are probably old in their 20s now, running around with some of them have my autograph for no reason. And all these other kids that were part of the games. And, sorry to let you down, kids, but I'm no longer a basketball player. Anyway, it was really fun. Again, we basically won every game. In the Lithuanian semifinal, or when we played Lithuania again, one of my teammates, Tyrell Edwards, shout out Tyrell, friggin' won on a buzzer beater dunk. Unbelievable. Lost his shoe at half court, going full speed, dunked, unreal, buzzer beater. And that was super exciting. I remember throwing an unbelievable overhead alley-oop pass to my buddy Sitar. He was the grade 8 that was on the team, but shout out Sitar. I think he played a little bit at Mac too, but he dunked on Greece, which was super sick. we got to watch some of the other games in between our games. And I was witness, unfortunately, to one of the worst games of basketball I ever saw. And it was Bangkok versus Karachi, Pakistan, I believe. And by the time, like, we didn't watch the start of the game, I think we were there like at half, honestly. It wasn't even into the second half, really. I kid you not, the score was 94-2. I'm not joking. It was the most lopsided game I've ever seen. And basically what was happening at this point, Bangkok defensively was just letting the Pakistan team total drive into the layup. Pakistan would go in, miss the layup. Bangkok would get the rebound, dribble, score, and repeat the process over and over again. Literally, I saw a kid drive in completely undefended, threw the ball over the rim, over the whole basket, over the backboard, and almost went up into the stands, into that elevated stands. If it wasn't, it would have definitely went into the stands. And they played this morbid, atrocity out. And I believe that team backed out of the tournament that day and didn't put they were wearing like jogging shorts. I didn't know if they knew what they were doing. It was like really interesting, the fact that they were even in it. Maybe the tournament just needed another team. Admittedly, that side of the pool was just a little bit different. Like I said, our side was like had a team from the US, Lithuania, very, very historically good at basketball. Us, we had a pretty stacked pool, whereas the other pool wasn't as necessarily as stacked, and maybe that's why they put the home team in there. Anyway, they clearly crushed this Pakistan team. Actually, they allowed us to have, like, we'd have dinners after the games, like on the like, I don't want to say Olympic grounds, but like the games, like where all the games were being held in the sports complex, if you will. There was like a big kind of banquet center, like hall, that you could have dinner, and they would put out this big buffet thing. They actually had this like unreal beef dish. I don't even know what it was. It was kind of the only thing that we ate that was like relatively local, that was actually delicious. And you were kind of allowed to put on performances. Like there was a stage, and some of the teams, which I guess this might be an international sporting tradition, some of the teams kind of had like little dances or songs or kind of like choreographed things. And like this Pakistan team did something. I think maybe one or two of the other teams did it. We didn't even know it was even a thing until we got there. So that wasn't even going to happen. I don't know what we were going to do, sing "We Are the Champions" or something stupid. Like, I don't know what the hell we were going to do anyway. It wasn't going to go down. But that was really interesting. Like I said, the food was cool. Like they gave us a lot of different options. Like they had hot dogs in that mix too. It was very international. I think they tried to kind of represent everybody in the buffet at the sports complex. But outside, it was a really interesting thing. Again, being young and more or less on my own, because other than my dad sitting on the bench, when we were with the team, we had our own. We were in a different hotel. We were basically on our own. And, there was a 7-Eleven near our hotel with a dog that we all thought was dead that used to sit out front of it. But then one day it moved, and I guess it wasn't. And we could go get like chips and like there was some stuff there that we kind of recognized. And, we tried like shrimp chips and like all kinds of cool stuff like that. But it wasn't like we were getting super adventurous, because I remember one of the first days we went like walking the streets a little bit, and like the smell is just everything is overwhelming. There's incense, there's like pollution, body odor, whatever people are cooking, all dogs, stray dogs are kind of like squirrels over there. They're just everywhere. And I remember walking by a guy, and he had like a little food, like a little hot dog cart, and he had a big wok, and he was just like stirring something up in it. And I was like, oh, that looks like some kind of like chestnut or something that he's stirring up. One of those, I go up, and it's like huge roaches. So I was like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. I think one day my pops got me like pad thai, which was delicious, and it was like probably $2, and it was like this huge friggin' mound of noodles, and it was so delicious. But other than that, I didn't really go super adventurous at all. I didn't go full Anthony Bourdain on anybody there, which is a little bit of a shame. But again, like I said, I felt like I was not too young, but because I was so young and just trying to go with the flow, maybe a little overwhelmed. It was more so like, let's just keep going. I remember finding a McDonald's every once in a while just to be like, all right, this is something to eat. I know I'm going to be able to like it and get through it. It's not too expensive, whatever. The cool thing about McDonald's is, you know, they used to have, I don't know if they even have those dispensers. I haven't been in a McDonald's in so long, where you could get your ketchup and fill up your sweet and sour sauce back in the day too, but you'd pump the thing, get your ketchup. In Thailand, they had like that chili sauce, like that sweet chili sauce, Memories of Thailand thing, PC brand, shout out PC brand, pump, and like spicy mustard pump too. So that was really interesting. And then they also had this burger called the Samurai Burger, which was basically a quarter pounder dipped in teriyaki sauce, like on a burger, which, again, this is how not adventurous. I don't think I even tried that. So again, I was just trying to keep it simple. Don't hate me. I was in grade 9. You know, I was trying my best. Again, we stayed in the same hotel with most of the other teams too, which was really interesting. So me and my buddy Andrew were roommates, and then obviously everyone else on the team had a roommate. There was like some girls from Poland on our floor, and me and my buddy Andrew were Polish, and we were like, hey, we're Polish. And they started speaking Polish to us, and we're like, oh, I guess we're not that Polish. Anyway, you know, it's kind of funny, just like, you know, it's like you have your heritage, and then, you know, some people can say, okay, yeah, I'm from there, or I identify with that, but like, you know, once someone's like truly from that country, you know, you kind of start to pale in comparison. You kind of go, oh, yeah, right, I forgot I'm just a Canadian. But you know, that was tons of fun. The beds were like a little bit small, like literally like short. Like I felt like my knees were like completely, like my feet were almost touching the floor. So that was an interesting sleep. The tournament went really well. Obviously, we beat Lithuania in the like kind of semifinal thing to get to the final. We played Mexico City in the final, so Mexico City ran through everybody in their pool, and there was like kind of like, I guess, a little bit of rumors going around that, you know, Mexico City is gigantic. It is a super city. It's the biggest city in North America, I believe. It's just gigantic. And again, like I said, the stipulation is as long as your parents pay taxes in the city, you're allowed to represent that city in the International Children's Games. I think the rumors anyway were that there were kids outside of Mexico City still coming in. Even if that was the case, the city is so big, it's almost like the city itself is almost like the entire population of Canada. They had a giant pool to choose from. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, we're playing against them. Me and our other center, Pat Donnelly, shout out Pat. We were both like 6'6" and like big, like kind of big kids. Like we were like high 200 pounds at least back then. I didn't even really keep an eye on my weight that much back then, sadly, but we were pretty heavy dudes for basketball players, but tall. Tall for our age, especially too, because a lot of our guards weren't necessarily that tall, but they were still playing with us. Now, Mexico City's team was basically the same, but their guards were tall. They had two big centers just like us, so the centers were kind of like in a deadlock. We battled it out. Each guy kind of either negated the other guy, or we weren't necessarily a factor, but their guards were like all about like 6 foot, 6'2", which had like 4 to 6 inches on some of our guards, and just were quick, athletic, could jump, were really fast. And they kind of got up on us pretty early. We tried to narrow the margin, I think around half, and we ended up losing by 10. It was just so frustrating. Such a sad victory. After everything that happened too, we were on such a good roll. We were winning great games, and it was just so frustrating. And so, I mean, anytime you lose is frustrating, but you know, I thought we had a chance of winning gold, but we came out with the silver. It was awesome. And the girls won gold, which is amazing. And they actually played Mexico City in the final too. So it was really interesting to see Hamilton, Mexico City in the final. You know, we did there's a medal ceremony, the whole thing. Really cool. We all got out of there with really cool medals. The games kind of gave us like a little care package too. So we have this little plush doll. I guess the mascot of the tournament, or the mascot of the whole games, was this elephant. So again, they kind of gave us parting gifts and stuff. And once the tournament was over, I believe the finals of the basketball was potentially one of the last events of the entire games. So very soon after, we had the closing ceremonies. Myself and Sitar actually got to carry the flag for Hamilton, which was amazing. So, you have like a city flag that you kind of carry. We carried that through the closing ceremonies as things go down. And, again, all these kids that were at the games were all in the stands at the ceremonies. And we had like pins and little Canadian flags and tattoos and, all that stuff in the dollar store. And we were just chucking it in the stands. And it was surreal just walking up and down just with my buddy and just like my teammate looking, just going like, what is this? These kids love us. And we're just tossing stuff to them. We just felt, we felt like we were on top of the world. It was amazing. And it was amazing to be with the girls too when they won gold. Such a special moment for both teams too, right? So, awesome tournament. Like I said, at the end of it, we had a few days to go out sightseeing. So over the days, we did like really traditional touristy stuff, like kind of went to like big tourist locations, which is totally fine by me. They took us down the river in these boats with these big long propellers, super cool. Just like seeing villages that are based off the rivers and stuff, and then seeing some of these temples. We went to see the reclining Buddha, which is this big, huge, like 100-foot long gold Buddha that's like laying on its side, and this like intricate pattern on the soles of its feet. We went to see like the Jade Buddha, which was like essentially like the Buddha in Buddhism. And there's like they like switch it out for like different seasons in their religion. And there was a sign, and this is like a tourist spot, but it's also like a pilgrimage destination for a lot of Buddhists. And Thailand, I believe at the time, was about 95% Buddhist. And there was a few signs in English around that said, and we had a tour guide too, shout out Amy, our tour guide, who was taking us around. And she said, don't point your feet at the Buddha. It's not respectful. And, there's just people on my team and stuff just sitting out there, feet out. They didn't care. They didn't think about it. I mean, a lot of us went to Catholic school. You'd think there'd be some reverence, but there wasn't. And, it was like, it kind of brings me to a point where it's like, there's a spirituality nature to religion, and then there's obviously the organization's part of religion, which I think that's the part where people kind of rail against the authoritarianism, the heavy-handedness, especially in Catholicism. It's very guilt-based, but again, there's a spirituality aspect of things. And when it comes to other people's religions, I think you just got to respect it, because they have to do and they have to live the way that they want to live, and they want to do the certain rituals and traditions that their religion allows them to. And by people on my team and other people in the world kind of flaunting that, it just disrespects the whole idea, and it only solidifies the polarity between people who aren't as religious and people who are very religious. And like I said, I'm not necessarily, it's a cliche, not religious, but I'm spiritual in the sense that, I understand that there is connection to a higher being, and sometimes it does require a lot of tradition and, different ritual and different things to kind of get you in that mindset too, right? Behavioral or otherwise shamanic religions where you're ingesting something too to get you into an altered state. So, it's really interesting, and especially in our times nowadays where there is some intolerance with certain religions, and I think again that most religions do have that nugget of truth, or at least spiritual truth, in the sense that we can all kind of understand an aspect of it, but you have to respect everybody to kind of get to that next level. And, it was an amazing experience for me to go through these whole international children's games. There's so many more things that, I wish I could remember, I wish I could show you, but they're experiences that happen, and, they shape me to this day. And like I said, it was a really important aspect, it was a really important experience for me. And, I remember a lot of it to this day. And I never knew, I still don't know if I'll ever go back there. I would love to, and I'd love to explore a little bit more of the country too, and a little bit more of Southeast Asia. But I knew when I was there that it might be my only chance to go there too. So, I remember absorbing it as much as I can. And again, you're in that kind of heightened sense anyway. So I just remember being a sponge through all those times, and it was so important. And again, sports got me there, and sports gets a bad rap, and it's a very different world these days, especially for high school sports. But there's an importance not only in the values of sport, but you get to travel the world literally, and you get to meet all these people and have all these experiences through sport. And I think that's the magic, right? And, the only way you can do that. And look, I ended up playing football. That football was my big sport, but this was a basketball experience. So again, play as many sports as you can. And if you have kids, or if you know anyone with kids, have them get into sport as early as possible, and have a good balance, of course. But again, sport can take you so many places in life, and it can teach you so many things. And then you can always use those teachings to thrive in other parts of life too, right? So again, if you're able to travel, get out there, learn new things, because the more we stay at home, the less we learn about ourselves. So I think we go out there, we get to see ourselves in a mirror, in this international mirror, and say, listen, we're not all so different, and we're part of this global community, and we're part of this collective unconscious that's all together. And when we get out there, we get to meet that, and we get to learn new things from different cultures, and we get to experience new things. And I was really grateful that sport got me to do that. And I can't wait to do a little bit more, because my parents just moved to Germany, and I'm really looking forward to going out there and exploring a little more Europe at least. And the rest of the world is next. So I'm really looking forward to it. And again, thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast, go check us out at our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. If you want to reach out to us, hit us a line, let us know. Any questions, reach out to us on our Twitter at the Bigmark Pod, or at the Bigmark Podcast, and our Instagram at the Bigmark Podcast. Again, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you. We want to build the Bigmark Podcast community. And, again, I'm having so much fun with you guys. I can't wait to do the next episode. Love you all. We'll see you soon. Hit that bell, hit the notifications, like and subscribe. We'll talk to you soon. Love ya. Peace.